you all join hands and we'll try and contact Liddy. It's Sheila's night. This is Sheila over here on my right. I'd like to welcome all the guests to this book launch by Revival Press, and it's Where I'm From by Sheila Fitzpatrick O'Donnell. Sheila Fitzpatrick O'Donnell is a native of Limerick City, now living in Shanagolden, County Limerick. She comes from a long line of poets, storytellers. Her mother, known as Polly the Poet, encouraged her to pick up the pen. Her work has been published in many anthologies in Ireland and abroad. First, to kick off proceedings, I invite the CEO of Revival Press, Dominic Taylor.
Tom. I wish the Father Royal got dinner. I'd like to express my gratitude to all of you for joining us tonight to celebrate the publication of Where I'm From by Sheila Fitzpatrick O'Donnell. This book marks the 147th title we have published since the inception of our community publishing project in 2009. Throughout this period, I've known Sheila as a dedicated attendee at the much-loved but now discontinued White House Poetry Revival reading series, which was established by Briain in 2003. Over the years, I've witnessed many aspiring poets come and go, often fading away after a few weeks. Sheila, however, has proven her resilience as a poet by continuously honing her art and craft, and tonight she presents her collection of poems as a confident and genuine poet. This new collection of her poems is described by poet John Liddy as a powerful piece of social and personal history. But I feel that these poems are much more and delve beyond the realm of mere historical or objective reality. Sheila's work transcends the boundaries of facts and events, offering us a glimpse into an alternate reality, a subjective world of emotions and feelings, the realm of the artist. Let me say that I am particularly pleased that Revival Press is publishing Sheila's work for two reasons. Firstly, like Revival Press, she hails from the lineage of readers at the White House Poetry Revival, a noble tradition with roots tracing back to the poetry circle founded by Desmond O'Grady in the White House in 1954. Desmond worked and served as secretary to the influential early modernist poet Ezra Pound. Pound, in turn, was a friend of W.B. Yeats and also associated with T.S. Eliot and Joyce, and his early poems were heavily influenced by Dante's work. Thus, Sheila, you're connected to a remarkable lineage. Secondly, the Limerick Writers' Centre and Revival Press firmly believe that genuine culture must begin in the clay and soil of our communities. Sheila, through her poetry activities such as the Poetry Chair and Random Acts of Poetry, exemplifies this community ethos, and we believe writers like Sheila deserve to see the fruits of their labour manifest themselves in the form of a published book. Indeed, she embodies what I've often quoted here from the Chilean Nobel Prize-winning poet Pablo Neruda, who said that poetry is like bread, it should be shared by all, by the vast, incredible, extraordinary family of humanity. Neruda took poetry from the shelves of the rich and gave it back like bread to the people, and that is what we are doing here tonight, sharing with family and friends the poetry of Sheila Fitzpatrick O'Donnell. Therefore, I'm delighted to see so many of you gathered here this evening in support of Sheila's book for two significant reasons. Firstly, it is wonderful that Sheila's work is now available in book form. Secondly, through the sale of books like Sheila's, we can reinvest in publishing new writers. By purchasing Sheila's book, you're not only supporting her, but also contributing to the support of other local writers. In conclusion, I'd like to extend my thanks to several individuals who have contributed to the success of this event. Firstly, thank you, Sheila herself, for granting us the opportunity to publish her work. I'd also like to express my gratitude to Mairtin and Briain, who will officially launch the book, as well as to William O'Neill and his staff here at the People's Museum of Limerick. Furthermore, I'm grateful for the efforts of my colleagues at the Limerick Writers' Centre, particularly Lot Bender, whose tireless work as our book designer has been invaluable. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dominic. Now, a word about our friend who's going to officially launch this. Mairtin Briain lives in Limerick. He's a retired school teacher with a passion for education and a strong background in all things culture and the arts. Mairtin Briain.
I was get down to do my next CV. That was very helpful. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge the great work of the Limerick Writers' Centre before I go into the launch for Sheila, and to say that what has been achieved through the organisational skills of Dominic in writing and the facilities for writing and the capacity and ability to be able to write and publish is a very admirable work that has gone on for many, many years. And I've always admired the strength of commitment to the organisational skills it takes to bring something like this together and to continue to pursue the ideal of everybody who has a voice being given the opportunity to see themselves in print. Now, having looked through and appreciated and enjoyed Sheila's book, Where I'm From, I like the use of colloquial language throughout the poetry, which is very strongly Limerick. It also is very colourful at moments, and I think that's good too. So I welcome you all anyway for being here to celebrate this fiercely honest, memorable and inspiring publication by Sheila Fitzpatrick O'Donnell in collaboration with Revival Press. And I'll open with a quote here at the back of her book from Jane Hirschfeld, which I think is very appropriate for this collection, and that is, "A good poem shocks us awake, one way or another. Through its beauty, its insight, its music, it shakes or seduces the reader out of the common gaze and into a genuine looking. And make no mistake, I consider such a moment of transformation to be a radical event." Sheila triggers such moments through her work, these moments of transformation, and through her work creates many radical events for her readers. This is a new and interesting step in Sheila's poetry writing journey. It's well-crafted, honest, sincere poetry that resonates with all who grew up in the 60s and 70s in Limerick. Indeed, it gave me quite a few laughs as I read through it and remembered expressions and recalled expressions that I'd heard in my childhood as well and had in the meantime forgotten. Because Limerick people have quite a unique way of expressing characters and situations at times. I remember things like a very low-sized neighbour who was called Lofty. That was his nickname. Typical Limerick wit, and other things like that. There's also an unapologetic account of how things really were, and triggered many memories for myself. All of this mischievous and very honest work created behind the hallowed portals of Glenstal Abbey, believe it or not. And thanks also to Mairtin, who acted in an advisory capacity to Sheila as she was producing and working through this collection. The cover design by Loch Bender and photographer Peter Gardner is very appropriate for the way it reflects upon the poet and the place of the contents of this book, Where I'm From. The first half of the book consists of poems in episodic form and memoir layout, as seen through the eyes of the poet and presented to us in the crystal clear language of accurate recall of their social context during her formative years. That's Sheila's formative years. It's a roller coaster of personal and social history. Now, I am a very good friend of John Liddy, but I didn't realise that I'd be using the same expression as him this evening, which was read earlier by Dominic. The use of colourful language and expressions were very much part of the local colour and language of Limerick in her formative years. It reflects the poet's pride of place in where she grew up and how it formed the creative, confident person she has become in life. There is great youthful joy in this poetry, tinged with the sadness of loss and negative circumstances over which the poet and her siblings and those with whom she grew up and their parents had no control. In those years, the control of church, educational institutions, societal bias. It was a time of harsh criticism. I remember that we were all emotionally exhausted and traumatized lest we became unforgivable sinners and we'd end up burning in hell for eternity. That was kind of normal thinking about what we were told growing up. Quite shocking, really, when you think of the psychology of it now. These poems are uplifting, exciting, and give us all pause for reflection. All engineered by Sheila in the great book of realities of the era in which she grew up and the way it informed her to make her a force to be reckoned with and much admired for her endeavours and her honesty. Indeed, my late partner Bertha, who launched Sheila's first collection, a bouquet of trilogies, admired her commitment to developing her skills as a poet and admired her unique manner of expressing thoughts of everyday life in her reflective presentation and through the imagery in her poetry. In this collection, she uses the language of her generation fearlessly. Not the mode of expression that was reserved for the genteel drawing rooms of that time, of course. As, for example, in Out in the Piss and Rain way into the early hours. But it was very clear and understandable and very expressive. There is warmth in her poetry too, towards her nana, her mam, and people who influenced her life in an enriching, loving and positive way. I am going to read her poem Snatched for you because we are presented with some of the darker things of that time, being a single mother who was left without their baby by greedy institutions that revelled in punishment rather than redemption and forgiveness.
Page 36 now.
36, thank you. Snatched. Who was it that snatched you from your mother's breast? Who? Just at the dawn of life, who was it? O suffering Jesus, be your witness, she never got to bond, nor swaddle you in white, show you off with pride. No baptism, poor child. She never got to rock, nor keep you warm, nor sing you nursery rhymes, to count your teeny-weeny fingers and your tiny little toes. Deprived of the pleasure of that newborn baby smell, she never got to fluff and spit and curl your silken hair. Never got to top and tail, nor soak you in a Johnson's bubble bath, nor air your terry toweling nappies on the wooden clothes horse by the fire, nor catch that hungry guzzle of an early morning suckle. Who was it? Who snatched you from your mother's breast and buried you in an overcrowded vault? 'Twas not your mother's fault. I think that's a very powerful word. She also deals with addictions and the misfortunes of society, and we have a poem for Gabriel, which I think he was a well-known character by many people who lived in Limerick, Gabriel Hennigan, and funnily enough, he had great interaction and warmth with people always, despite being the victim of alcoholic addiction. Slouched upon the footpath, he hugged a brown paper bag between swigs of tawny wine. Voluptuous lips ranted. A mind full of intelligence peered through water-filled eyes, and a weather-beaten face, each crease weighed a ton. On those lousy grey winter days, fierce winds charged with a rush through Thomond Bridge. Silently, between doorways, he took cover. Gabriel Hennigan was a cute old whore. Ah, but the warmth of his smile could tease the last shilling from any man's pocket. Through this we see Sheila's empathy with humankind and those who are vulnerable, and we see this even more strongly in her Teresa poems. She was a friend who suffered with emotional turmoil in her life, and for that I just want you to hear the poem My Last Memory of You, Teresa. I've just taken maybe 3 or 4 really very apt poems that really encapsulate the wide scope of Sheila's capacities. Like an abandoned puppy, you waddled on the busy road, shoulders bent from the burden of your cross. Red-faced, panic-stricken, and waving your arms at drivers purposely ignoring you. I was about to pretend I didn't see you, but my conscience would not let me. I stopped the car. You got in. Then you recognized me and helplessly cried, "Take me back to the hospital. Take me home." On the way, you told me how lucky I was, how lovely I looked, and what a beautiful car I drove. You stroked my jaw with the back of your gentle hand. "'Tis only a bangle, Teresa," I nervously joked. There we were in our late 30s, parked outside the hospital entrance. You asked if I remembered the good days, said you were lonesome. Of course, Teresa, those special days are tucked deep within my heart. A tap on the window suddenly brought us back as 2 male nurses came to your assistance. You proudly introduced me as your friend. And through tear-filled eyes, in the rearview mirror, I could see you waving before we both vanished into our own very different worlds. So as you can see, the agony and turmoil was totally appreciated and totally emotionally absorbed by her, by the poet, I mean, in those moments in her life. And the capacity to remember it so vividly and express it in such an evocative way, I think, is the real test of the skill of the poet. Sheila also had turmoil in her life, especially the loss of her brother Gerard, of whom she often speaks, and I'm sure somebody will read one of those later on, from the family. But after all that, I have to say that all is not doom and gloom in Sheila's poetry. She talks about If Jesus were around today, and I think it's one of the funniest poems I've ever read, it's actually, if you read it and read it with the rhythm of the words, it's actually an excellent example of a rap poem. It was a poem, as I read it, I could hear it. And that is a real skill, to be able to do that with a pattern of words and rhythm. In her poem, that's another one I want to refer to later on. And if Jesus were around today is the next one, then we get that on near the end of the book. Here we are. If Jesus were around today, he'd be hanging out with me, dressed in his charity shop's finest grey Nike hoodie, with ripped Levi jeans, laced up docks and gay pride socks. Yes. He'd be the coolest kid on the block. He'd call around to chill out in the retro camper van, eat sourdough bread, sip the best of Aldi wine. Taking his time, he would rehearse a rap, sway to the rhythm of each seductive lyric. If Jesus were around today, he would drive along the wild Atlantic way, cool as any summer breeze, living our best lives together, adventurous, camping out above the rugged cliffs of Ballybunion, spinning yarns about the campfire with a spritz of sea salt in the tangles of our dreadlocked hair, share our dreams sleeping under the starlit sky, and at the cusp of dawn a dip in the sea, making our mark in the ripples of the sand, hand in hand, gallivanting the full stretch of the beach, then a long relaxing soak in a seaweed bath. If Jesus were around today, he'd be a devil-may-care. The life and soul of social media, he'd share the immediacy of a prayer from morn to night, a holy fright. So again, that just gives a great insight into the capacity of the imagination to create a scenario that a lot of other of us wouldn't think about, but readily identify with once we hear it. And that is something that a poet does. I like the one in her poem, Who Do I Think I Am? She tells us unashamedly that she's a 60 years young chick full of wit and humour. And I think that's a great encapsulation of her attitude to life. She also excels in her storytelling skills in the poetry, all about the various characters in the famous poem, The Poetry Chair. Now, a lot of us involved in poetry would know about Sheila and British Wallace, Lord have mercy on her, who went all over the country with this armchair and invited people to sit in it and be creative, sing, read a poem, whatever. And some of the most amazing situations grew out of that. And the poem she has written about it, it is really worth a read because it's just the real skill of a poet and storyteller, with a very, very clear recall of details of individuals and situations and how they express themselves and observation of their behaviours, and really, really well worth a read. And then in her poem, The Night Shift, she brings us back with great tenderness and reverence to life at the moment of death, opening with a quote from the old refrain. You know that one. Etc. And describing the respect with which a body is blessed and laid out as they feel the angels are assisting them in this task. There's a message also for all of us in her beautiful poem, My Gift to You, on what is important in our lives, in that she gifts us with places and periods associated with happiness in our lives. Pauline Fain sums it up in a way. She sums it up very well when she says, that Sheila's quick-witted words evoke memories of youth with all of its innocence and optimism, as well as the heartache and struggle. And finally, I'm going to go back to Sheila herself in episode 7 of her memoir, and that will draw the launch to a close. And nothing more apt than using the poet's words to do that. I'm from the place of making fork slings, bows and arrows, a game of conkers, bonfires out in the field, playing cowboys and Indians, and the blinding dazzle of a Jackie Dandy signal, cap guns and horsing around the road with the lads, Coca-Cola cans squashed to the soles of muddy tackies, and where the boys imitate Tarzan on Sunday afternoon, roller skating, a game of picky, elastics, dobbers, Queenie I.O. who has the ball, is she big or is she small, etc. Games of handball and Irish dancing classes doing my 1, 2, 3s above in the handball alley, and where Florence and Marie Vaughan were turning and skipping rope for the girls in Hennessy Avenue, jumping to the rhythm of the skipping rope rhymes, all together girls, a swing on a rope under the streetlight pole, swapping the Beano, Dandy, Beazle, Bunty and Tammy comics, and playing knocking on the doors and running away, skitting laughing with my pals, Anna Kelly and Annette Earls, getting up to devilment, in the telephone box, making prank phone calls, tormenting the operator. Operator, hello, hello, there's a wino in here and he's drunk. And making a trolley out in the backyard with Scaw Hughes, Daithí Ward and Danny McBroderick. And where my brother Gabriel's pigeon loft stands on stilts high above the rusted galvanised roof, the whitewashed shed at the bottom of the back garden, the scream of a red-painted warning with a sign, "No girls." So, ladies and gentlemen, to synopsise the introduction to and launch of Sheila Fitzpatrick's collection, Where I'm From, I would say that it is a work of great reflection, great achievement, great skill. It is definitely a collection that will draw you in as you read it. It will reignite memories for people, because much of the language and the manner of expression in it is what we heard when we were growing up. And I think that Sheila is to be commended for the level of achievement in this work. I declare it officially announced, Where I'm From, by Sheila Fitzpatrick O'Donnell.
Thank you very much, Mairtin O'Brien. Ladies and gentlemen, Sheila Fitzpatrick O'Donnell.
Thanks very much, Dominic, Mairtin, Tom, Marion Cody, Marion Rinnan, and all of you for coming here today to support me. Myself and Carrie will give a bashing today Where I'm From, thanks to Cora. Where I'm from. I'm from a place where the Catholic Church rules the roost. Physical punishment in school. The cursed sting of an angry nun's bata. Here it is normal to be called stupid. Sig sios agus dún do bhéal. I'm from seizures of after-school tantrums, crying out for my mother's affection. I'm from a dark confession box, the act of contrition. In Anamanaher agus an spirit nave, amen, and bless me, Father, for I have sinned. I am a 7-year-old little child, frightened. What sins do I have? I'm from giving a chicken penny for the poor black babies in Africa, and from the comfort of Auntie Peggy's kitchen, playing house, dressing up paper doll cutouts, making outfits for the blonde Cindy doll my mother got with the Green Shield stamps. I'm from a swing on a rope under a Mairtin read that, so one.
I'm from long avenues of large families. We all have nicknames here. In our house they call me Witchy Poo. I'm from a Saturday scrub in a steel bathtub with the smell of parabolic and sunlight soap, scrubbing boards, hand wringer washing machines, Omo, Tide and Daz hand washing powder, the starching, the crisp white fabric of my grandfather's collars steeped in a basin of Ricketts robin starch, and the long clotheslines of candy-striped sheets, cloth nappies, towels, and pink candlewick bedspreads blowing in the wind. Steamed up sculleries with big aluminium pots boiling spuds, pig's heads, packet and tripe, rabbit stew, fresh vegetables and stewed rhubarb from Grandad's back garden vegetable plot. Jelly and custard and home-baked apple tarts are every Sunday treat. I'm from the strum of my brother David's banjo, way down
By the Swanee River, far, far away.
And Nedzer used button accordion, tapping his foot to the musical beat of jigs and reels on the red and grey tarpaulin tiles. Shano's dancing and Polly playing the spoons, a clatter on the head, shoulder and elbow, and practising the penny whistle I got in Georgie O'Sullivan's. And the sprig of shamrock on St. Patrick's Day, Mrs. McCarthy's Limerick Girls Pipe Band, marching with the majorettes in the parade. I'm from Canon Briain's summer day trips to Lahinch, slats rolled up and running wild in the sea salt air, making Billy Bakers and singing, Billy, Billy Baker, dry up, dry up. A dip in the sea, the backsplash of oncoming waves, bare feet tingling in the ripple-marked sand, the adventures of camping, thumbing a lift on the road to Ballybunion, picking periwinkles from between saltwater rocks, picking potatoes in the mansion house, picking blackberries, gooseberries and wild mushrooms in the farmer's field out in Mairtin, and then getting hot skinning apples in the Bishop's orchard.
I'm from the wisdom of Auntie Irene's tongue, Tá me goma, weightless Liddy. By the shaking of the holy water, bless us as we go. Dear Lord, wash our sins away and keep our souls as white as snow.
I'm from the bounce of a spring mattress, pillow fight, red tartan, flanellette pyjamas, the bed that keeps falling down, boom, settled by the magic of my father's innovation. 2 cement blocks, problem solved. Hot water bottles, army woolen blankets and top coats on the lavabo, the smell of flea powder that goes with my breath, and where the ensuite is a bucket at the bottom of the bed, the telephone directory as toilet paper.
I'm from the best of streetwise kids who always look out for each other, ducking into the Carlton Picture Hall to watch the Bond films and westerns, ducking onto the train to Dublin, having a great laugh at the zoo, spending the borrowed single shillings from the gas meter and coppers from the trochria box and charity walk money. I'm from a sideways squint of a dubious teacher, amused by my antics, giving me 100 lines to be signed by my father. I must not let our dog Mona chew up the charity walk book. Where I'm from is a place of common sense, good manners and making an honest living. I'm from a place where the boys rob the Coca-Cola factory every evening. I collect the empty glass bottles in my boxcar down in the dump. I am the head bottle washer out in our shed. The sound of rain pelting on the tin roof, contented with Tibby, my tabby cat, breaking sticks with my small hatchet, cleaning coils of copper and mixing paint. This is my happy place.
I'm from hanging around the Bala shops messing. Here you can buy 1 cigarette for 3p, a sweet thrown in for the boot, in for a penny, in for a pound, where the boys kick the living shit out of each other.
I'm from an African Fish stamp book savings account, and from the excitement of the carnival coming to town, with the big crowds and pink candy floss, loud music and the big bright flashing lights, the swinging boats and the merry-go-round, cheer planes, and best of all, the bumpers, the thrill of driving, crashing, spinning around and laughing, the smoky smell of sulphur, then winning the big black and white panda on the Wheel of Fortune.
I'm from fortune tellers, storytellers, bards and poets, and soundtracks from the turntable of my older siblings' record player, Janis Joplin, Dylan, Cohen, the Moody Blues and Thin Lizzy, bedroom walls and ceilings plastered with pin-up posters, the Rolling Stones, The Who, Jimi Hendrix.
Bowie and David Essex, and from a busy Saturday afternoon town, long-haired hippies, LP albums under their arms, the smell of a fried onion wimpy, and a Knickerbocker Gloria treat from the Café Pery. I'm from a city of comical friends. We have our own lingo here, like you know, Shan, scowling around, acting the gomi. I am a gammy tattoo artist, the jab of an Indian inked needle into the skin of my blood brothers, and the prod of a pierced earlobe, gold studs, sleepers and cross-hooped earrings, drawing attention to ourselves. We wear Boston marks like bruises, Mohegans proud as peacocks, Wrangler denims turned up to our shins, red socks, high oxblood docks. I'm from punk rock, skinheads and boot girls, the gatch of a boot boy's walk, shipping in for the flagons of cider and tawny wine, dead wide to the shades, who patrol around the squad cars and the Black Mariah.
I'm from Sister Joan's Wednesday Night Youth Club. This is my best place. Contented volunteering in group discussions. Here I have found my niche, with John Hannah, Noel Fox and the angelic presence of Sister Joan Bowles. Sewing classes, cookery, hairdressing, typing and storytelling. I'm from a place full of stupid fucking Amadons who rob the clotheslines to catch horses. They are unruly fuckers. It's like the Wild West here, galloping bareback up and down our avenue, out in the pissing rain, way into the early hours.
I'm from the production line of a busy factory floor, building smoke alarms for EI electronics, working all the overtime 7 days a week. I'm earning good money here. I am loaded. A risk taker at the age of 16, a one-way ticket on an Aer Lingus flight from Shannon Airport all the way to Birmingham, with the promise of my very own single bed, full of adventure, exuberant and fearlessness. I'm staying for good with my cousin Deborah. I am homesick to a painful degree, but I will stick with it. Just 3 days into my venture, and
I'm from a broken-hearted telegram where time stops still. The tragic news of my brother Gerard's death carries me all the way back home to Ireland, way up in the clouds travelling alone, with a knot in my gut and a lump in my throat. Afraid to cry, I fight back the tears. There's a black cloud of gloom over our house. It is packed with Gerard's pals, cousins and neighbours. Mammy is heavily sedated on the couch, ashen-faced, heartache in her blank, distant stare. Extreme sadness everywhere.
I'm from upstairs on the back of a double-decker bus, a pull from the butt of a major cigarette, having the crack with my pals. I've made my mark with a permanent marker. SF was here the 1st of the 10th, 78. I'm barred from the number 3 bus. I walk home from the Roxborough swimming pool, chatting with my pal Eugene.
I'm from the blur of a hospital bed, victim of a violent attack, mistaken identity by 4 big, strong men. I'm 16, just a slip of a girl, traumatised, a miracle to have survived that full force wallop of a baton into the side of my head, knocked out cold on the footpath. The smell of Guinness from my poor father's breath, his warm teardrops streaming with my blood while nursing my stitch-up skull. He swears to God he'll fucking kill the bastards who did this. I never saw my father cry. I feel guilty and ashamed. I turn my shaved head away, press my face deep into the blood-stained pillow, pretend I'm asleep. My heart is doing 90.
I'm from Friday nights drinking down lanes, swigs of Bulmer cider and tawny wine, gangs of us having the crack, having the slag with Gabriel Hennigan, God be good to him. And where teenage blue sniffers are hallucinating, I am a crazy mixed up kid, leaning against the gable end of a pebble-dashed wall where graffiti slogans shout, "Abide the kid, up the IRA and skinheads rule okay."
I'm from the place where an argument is settled with a street fist fight.
AGR,
AGRO, aggro. A black eye, a handshake, and bobbed your uncle. And from the place where I get the heels of my loafers steel tipped in the American shoemakers with the strong smell of patchouli, brute, and shoe polish. This place is chock-a-block full of impatient teenagers shouting, and I'm making a small fortune collecting loafers and brogues from the ones who are barred.
I'm a 70s girl, spinning around in my brother David's brown gleaming Vauxhall Viva, chewing Wrigley's spearmint gum, blowing bubbles, and wearing the gypsy-style haircut. I am rapid. In my platform shoes, beige corduroy flares, red Shetland woolen jumper and faded Wrangler jacket. I am a wild bohemian rock chick like Susie Quattro on Top of the Pops. I'm from that time now of going steady with my fella. He is a vision. I'm a pillion passenger on his metallic blue Honda 175. Dates on the Treaty Stone steps, the flow of the Corrigar Falls, a stream of fishermen lined along Thomond Bridge walls. Eamon's crisp fish and chip in the Treaty Cafe, doused in that mouth-watering smell of vinegar, and a stroll along the island bank. We are madly in love, walking up the strand in a bubble of a midnight fog, when just out of nowhere the apparition of a fairy ghost, Far Gorta. Scared shitless, we gasp for breath, bless ourselves and run for our lives.
I'm just 17. I'm from the shame of a teenage pregnancy, the threat of a mother and baby home. I'm in big trouble, a child expecting a child, terrified. What will my mammy and daddy do? What will the priest say? My mind is uneasy, so I come up with a plan. Well, if the angel of the Lord declared unto Mairtin, she conceived. But no, I'm a stupid, dirty, lying bitch. Where I'm from is full of judgmental people.
So, I'm from where that love of mine joins the army. He is now a crew-cut, spitbull and polished soldier, meticulously turned out in his brass-buttoned uniform, now stationed in Clonmel. Where I'm from, sex and contraception is taboo. My fella swears he learned all about sex in the army. He shows me the condoms. I am mortified. That's a sin. Seamus O'Donnell, you're very dirty. I grabbed him from his hand, throwed him down the shore hole. He is in a red, roaring rage of a fit going on about the trouble he had in getting them. So, I'm from a shotgun wedding, a barrel and tap hoolie in my mother's kitchen that goes on for weeks on end. Yahoos and around the house and mind the dresser. I'm from a premature labour, my very own live doll. all snuggled up in pink, an innocent child born into the Catholic cult. Where I'm from, I'm coming from a place where everything is a sin. Thanks everybody.
Before we bring the curtain down on this joyous occasion, Sheila wants to just honour Frances Browner, who's in the audience. Would you like to sing, actually?
Yes.
Right. You've been spared my final words for about 5 minutes. Frances, take it away. No.
Night shift on the front. The night shift. Okay. Here I have it. You want it? So I start with and oh, my journey here on earth is o'er. 'Twill ring more joyfully than e'er before, and up to heaven I will take my lay, and the angels too will sing the The night shift. The moon lends light to my nightly rounds of these melancholic nursing home corridors. Every hour on the hour, I check and double check on each sleeping resident. Joan's timid voice calls, "Nurse, nurse," for the toilet and a drink of water. Sean calls for his son or daughter. And Mairtin, with the lovely smile, content in his recliner, still waiting on the cows. Nora rings her bell, she's all confused, and crying for her husband Tom. Her heart is broke. Her case is packed upon the bed, and buttoning up her woolen coat, insists on going home. I calm her with a cup of tea and ginger nut, her favourite biscuits. Teresa sings her song, the old refrain, and to the chorus we sing along. And though my journey here on earth is o'er, 'twill sing more joyfully than e'er before, and up to heaven I will take my lay, and the angels too will sing the Holy. Anna, the Polish nurse, calls me aside and in broken English says, "Quick, quick, is John?" We hurry down to Unit 7 and tend to John. He's just passed on. I whisper an act of contrition in his ear, sprinkle holy water over him, and in the dead weight of the night, the nurse and I wash and shave the corpse with reverence, dress and lay him out on a bed of crisp white linen. Weave a rosary bead between his fingers, join his hands, and light the blessed candle on the bedside table. We always do our duty well, believing the angels assisting us. The priest arrives, anoints the corpse with holy chrism, recites a Latin prayer, we bow our heads, recite a decade of the rosary, bless ourselves and genuflect, as dawn lends light to the melancholy corridors. I often think of home, the Holy Day, when I am all alone and far away. I'll sing the old refrain, the Holy Day. very much, everyone. Thanks, Francis.
Thank you.
You realise that, ladies and gentlemen, sometimes not everything gets into rehearsal. Dominic, publisher of note, Mairtin. Now, Mairtin chided me for a very brief summary of his career. My Christ, if we were going to give a full summary of his career, we'd be here all night. We might even see the dawn breaking over Limerick. That's another story. Anyway, folks, to avoid penury, poverty, and all sorts of maledictions in the house of the publisher or the author, for Jesus' sake, please buy the book and form an orderly queue to the drinks table. Good night.